Hello, darling dancers and dance enthusiasts. My name is Alyssa Jacob, and welcome to Raqs Curious, the new show where I answer your belly dance questions. So I wanted to dedicate the first episode to the top questions that I get asked when people find out that I'm a belly dancer. They always ask me the same things, or if there's a student coming in and they've never belly danced before, these are their top questions. If you have any questions, be sure to comment or send them in over email. Link will be somewhere in the show notes. Today we are going to talk about the top questions that I get asked as a dancer as well as a dance instructor from people who maybe want to get into it, or they just have these ideas about what it is. And so they'll come ask me and I will give them these answers, whether it was the answer they were looking for or not. So let's get cozy, grab a cup of tea or coffee, a quick snack, and let's talk about it. So the first question, and probably the biggest one that I get asked, is, will I lose weight? And my answer is always, maybe. You probably won't lose weight from just adding in belly dance alone to your usual regime of whatever you're doing. I will say that in my experience, students don't normally see any kind of weight loss unless they're adding in extra cardio. Maybe they're doing some weightlifting things that are helping them get stronger and lose that weight. Or they're changing their diet and the diet is working for them because they're not taking in XYZ. But what I tend to tell people is, no, you probably won't lose weight, but what you will probably see is a tightening of the core. So because belly dance uses so many abdominal muscles just to execute the movements, whether it's an undulation, if it's a pelvic lock, chest lock, you're using so much of your core, even just standing there, which we don't normally do in our everyday life. We're not trained to do that. So when you start belly dancing and you start learning to engage your core instead of just doing it when you are doing exercises like crunches, and then you start dancing and you're using the core in different ways. And what I tend to see is actually whatever you have will tighten. Whatever your situation is, it tends to tighten and you start to feel a little better from that. So even though you're not losing weight, you will probably see some kind of changes in your body physically. Another question that I get asked a lot is, what kind of style do you teach? I don't necessarily teach a specific style. What I tend to teach is technique based, and then what we do is we take those techniques and we take those movements and we learn how to do different variations of them so that you can incorporate them into a song where this is appropriate or a song where this is appropriate. It's not going to be quite so cut and dry as this is the move, this is the only move. There are so many different flavors of that same move that it becomes this bundle of possibilities that you have access to from learning that move and learning how to, one, execute it correctly and safely, but two, how to modify it for the song or the feeling or the look. It could also be about what kind of look you want to create. So it's not really about style, it's about technique. And then you create the style after the technique. So first you learn the technique and then you learn how to stylize it based on your musicality, your musical interpretation of the song, as well as if it's a specifically emotional song. There's a lot of really dramatic belly dance songs out there, which are really fun to play with these movements and just kind of just sink into one of them and use it until you find something that you really like. The third question that I get asked a lot by students, do I have to show my stomach? No, you do not have to show your stomach. It's all about what you're comfortable with and what you want to show. You don't ever have to perform if you're a student. If you do want to perform, you don't have to show your stomach. There are a ton of dress options, and there's a lot of really cool folkloric costumes that you can get into as well that are most specifically dresses. They even have pants underneath if you want extra coverage. They've got long sleeves. This idea that belly dance is about these very specific costumes that have coins or any kind of embellishments that are a bra and maybe a skirt that's split and you're showing your leg, that's not a hard and fast rule. That's something that was kind of adopted over time for cabaret dancing and working in the club. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do it. And if you do want to work in a cabaret or club, there are a ton of dress options for that are really shiny and sparkly and pretty. They have some really down-to-earth, more cultural dresses that you could wear when performing, but you have to be really careful about the type of dance you're presenting in those dresses. So there are some options. If you're not sure, ask me a question. Send me a picture of the dress. Send me a picture of the video. Ask me your questions. That's what I'm here for. In class, what I usually recommend for my students is a form-fitting shirt. It doesn't have to be skin tight. That's probably not comfortable for some people. It doesn't have to be skin tight. It doesn't have to be a specific sleeve style. You just have to be able to see the movements that you're creating within your own frame. And wearing baggy clothes is not going to allow you to see your progress. In terms of pants, I always say to wear some kind of athletic pants that are ankle length or maybe a little shorter. You don't want to wear skirts to class. If we're on the floor and we're stretching, at least wear pants underneath, right? At least wear pants just for everybody else. You can wear footwear as long as it is dance footwear. So don't come in with your trainers, your sneakers, your street shoes. You want to come in with shoes or some kind of ballet slippers that are specifically made for dancing in. It is a safety reason. Also, no socks. No just straight regular socks that you would wear every day, because those won't give you enough traction. So the shoes that are the footwear that is created for dancers is for things like turning and moving across the floor, where walking, it's really more for catching, like the treads underneath are more for catching. So if you wore those while you're dancing in a studio, it might catch, or if you're on carpet, it might catch and you'll fall on your face and get hurt. And don't do that. Also in my classes, I have a rule that there are no belts allowed, no hip scarves that have any kind of beads, coins, and shells. It doesn't matter how thick the coins are. They could be those little teeny tiny paper thin ones you can actually bend with your hands that you get on training hip scarves with the coins, and they're jingly and it's fun. I'm not going to deny that it's fun, because it is. But it's loud. You can't really hear the directions over class that much. And when you step on them, it really hurts. The shells. I actually have a story where I was teaching class one day and there were some shells stitched into my belt and I made a movement and I actually sliced my finger open during class, I don't recommend. All right, question number 4. Do I need any kind of dance experience before taking a belly dance class? Nope. There are plenty of beginning belly dance classes out there, and any teacher should be able to break down and explain each movement in a variety of ways. So that's another thing that we can talk about in another video, about how to find a teacher that is right for you. But one of the requirements for me is to find a teacher, or be a teacher in my case, who can explain the movements for different learners. So what do I mean by different learners? You might be a visual learner. You might be a kinetic learner where you have to move to get the movement. You might be a listening learner where you have to hear the explanation before it makes sense. You might be any combination of those things. It really just depends on you and your learning style. That's going to be the teacher for you. And if the teacher can't break it down for you, then you are not really going to benefit from those dance classes as much as if you were taking with someone who you were actually able to understand and get the movement. So even if you don't get the movement right away, if you have trouble with the movement, it's probably not going to click after one attempt at getting it. You're going to have to do it over and over and over again. But as long as it clicks in your brain, you can get your body to respond over time. So don't expect instant results. There's no Insta belly dancer. There's no just add water or sparkles or whatever, and you're automatically a belly dancer. That's another misconception that you get a lot. All right, our final question for the day. If you are thinking about belly dancing, this one's probably on your mind right now. How long does it take to learn how to belly dance? The answer is there is no answer. Everyone is different. Don't give me that look. I know no one wants to hear that. Everyone is different. The time you put into learning outside of class matters. The time you take to look into music, rhythms, cultural context, all matters. So it's not just, I'm going to learn a couple movements, I'm going to put on a costume, I'm going to look really cute, and I'm going to be a belly dancer. It doesn't necessarily work that way. You have to learn how to do these movements safely. You have to, if you're like me and you're a Western dancer, I'm very clearly not from a country of origin from these dances. You have to be a good guest. What does that mean to be a good guest? You have to know your stuff. You have to know where these dances come from, what they're like right now, what they were like in the past. And this is why getting a teacher, a mentor, someone who you can turn to for these answers to your questions about what's appropriate and what's not appropriate is really important. And it doesn't matter necessarily if it's an in-person teacher or if it's a teacher that you find online and you ask them questions. That's totally fine. That's how we get a lot of our information right now. There are plenty of dancers who have been to the Minot regions, the Swana regions, who maybe live there now. There's a couple that live there now, or who are just intensely studying from dancers of origin and not necessarily just whoever's in the neighborhood and offering classes. So in terms of technique, one of the biggest factors when it comes to learning any new skill is repetition. If you only practice during class, it will take much longer. You will be in class for years and years and maybe be really frustrated because you're not where you want to be. And that's all down to you and your practice outside of class and your ability to fit practice in wherever you can. The best thing that you can do is to actually schedule in time weekly, maybe daily, if you have that kind of flexibility in your schedule, or you're maybe not overcommitted like a lot of us are. You want to set aside time that you protect and say, this is my time to dance. That time doesn't have to be an hour. It doesn't have to be an hour-long class like you would do in a group class in person or online. You could just do a few minutes here and there. It doesn't have to be so stressful. You don't have to take it so seriously and overschedule yourself and then become overwhelmed. You actually, I recommend building in time as you go. So maybe start with 5 minutes. You can do 5 minutes, right? You can shimmy for 5 minutes. That's a great practice that builds stamina, and you're actually learning how to relax when you do shimmies. And then you can maybe increase it another couple minutes. And then, oh, that's fine, increase another minute. And you can keep doing that until you have a set time that works for you and your schedule. Don't put so much pressure on yourself. If you are one of those people who think, I really don't want to dance in my house, someone's going to see me, just turn off the lights. Dim them down low. Just have like maybe one lamp on, put on some music, dance around in the semi-dark in a room that you are comfortable in, and you know you're not going to trip and fall over something, and just dance like nobody's watching, right? All right, time for the word of the day. Okay, so this is something that I wanted to add in because you'll hear these words come up a lot, and most of the time they don't give any kind of context. So here we go. Our word of the day is Raqs Sharqi. Now I am saying that very Western. This is the Arabic term for what we commonly know as belly dance. Raqs meaning dance, Sharqi meaning Eastern. So Eastern dance or Oriental dance. And this is why when you hear a lot of, especially Egyptian dancers, talking about their art form, they refer to it as Oriental dance, Danse Orientale. This term is kind of problematic. Belly dance is not a direct translation. It is actually a name that was used for marketing, essentially. It comes from the French term, and they just directly translated it, and it has nothing to do with Eastern dance. It's dance of the stomach is what it would directly translate to in French. So when they brought it over to the US, when they were kind of doing a national premiere, if you think about it that way, this was the first time that the general public had easy access to seeing some of these cultural dances from around the world. They translated it to belly dance. And this was in the Victorian times, where like a little ankle was scandalous, right? It was scandalous. So to see these dancers uncorseted, but still covered, they were still covered, doing these dances, it caused quite a stir. So that's it for today. We will be back for another episode. Be sure to get your questions in that you want answered, and to also include whether you want to be referred to by your name or if you want to be anonymous. All right, it just happens to be Valentine's Day when I'm filming this. So I just want to let everyone know I appreciate you and your curiosity, and happy Valentine's Day. Do you have any questions about belly dance? Send in your questions to hear my answers. Visit my website, alyssajacob.com/contact, and send me whatever question that you have on your mind. Whether you are just someone who casually watches belly dance, but you have no desire to learn it. Maybe you're thinking about getting into it, or maybe you've been dancing for a little bit and you are still completely in the dark when it comes to most of the belly dance culture and community that's out there. See you next time, rock stars.